Welcome to Democracy-ish. I am Danielle Moodie, and Wajahat is tired today.
I'm always tired, but that's okay. I'm fasting during Ramadan, and I think Danielle's buried under a foot of snow. We also have some snow. So anyone on the East Coast, I hope you're safe. I hope you're warm. I hope you have infrastructure and individuals in your community that are paid well to like help you navigate bad weather in this economy, in this administration that doesn't believe in climate change but believes in war.
I mean, I have to say this. One, this is the second major snowstorm in New York. Everywhere. Like we had just melted the snow from 3 weeks ago to now, and it was 50 degrees, just climate change. It was 50 degrees on Saturday to wake up to over a foot of snow today, which is insane. Not to mention, this is something that isn't in our rundown, Waj, but I did want to ask you about it before we go into our rundown, which is the fact that over the weekend, Mexico is on fire because
Mm.
of the Mexican military killing one of the heads of the cartel. And there are Americans trapped in Puerto Vallarta and other parts. There was a gunman that took over the Guadalajara airport. And this administration was just like shelter in place to the Americans that are there. And I think to myself, traveling now is really about taking your life into your own hands, knowing that this government, God forbid something happen where you are, they totally aren't going to do anything to help you.
Well, no, I've been saying that for a while, especially for people like us who are critical of the administration and actually openly criticize it. Look at what happened to Jamal Khashoggi. If, God forbid, you and I go to a country or the embassy of a country, and I don't know, a brutal authoritarian leader of that country once it's disappeared, all he has to do is pay off Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's like, probably deserved it. Waj was scum. Danielle was a black.
Was a black.
She was a black Warbalat. Is that his
What a
name?
black.
Warbalat was a Muslim, and I heard he was a bad guy. That's what he did to Jamal Khashoggi. Bad
Yeah.
person, doesn't matter. I love MBS. He's tough. He's strong. I've thought about this for a while, and actually, for a couple of years, I've been telling some of our friends, colleagues, some of the people that each time we go to some of these Muslim majority countries, right? Anywhere there's like an authoritarian leader, we're like, you sure you want to do that? You sure? And then I remember people are like, I'll wait until the Democrats win because at least maybe then like the Democrats will pretend to care. He won't. Donald Trump won't even pretend.
No, he won't at all. Yeah. So I was watching, the different parts of Mexico. It is quite dangerous right now. And just thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, we do not have a government that is going to take care of us. On top of the fact that they also DHS decided after Kristi Noem uses $200 million of our taxpayer dollars to buy herself not one but two private jets to fly around in with her boyfriend, takes away TSA pre-check and global entry for those of us that have paid for these things will
Yep.
not be receiving a refund, but she wants to focus on the general population.
Yep. Do you have Clear?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So there you go. But
But
then
I just paid for global entry so that I could come back in very easily when I'm traveling.
and
And
and and she's like, well, now that the Democrats have cut down the funding, I guess we just have to just do this to save money. But I'm gonna spend a lot of your money to get another jet to cosplay with my lover. Oh, I'm sorry, my colleague Corey Lewandowski. Did her face move? Does her face still move?
no, it's fighting against itself.
You ever seen the movie Total Recall? I call her face Quado, that the mutant that comes out of the body and has its own sentient life form, but the face is actually smarter than the body, and I'm convinced the face is Mexican and hates her policies.
Oh my God. Oh, that was good. That was good. Okay. And now we transition. We transition to other crazy shit that started happening over the weekend. So yet again, another Trump supporter goes to Mar-a-Lago armed, and is shot dead by the security forces there. This man, I think he was 21 years old, Austin Tucker Martin. Uh, as folks are saying, he is a Christian Trump supporter and was absolutely disgusted with Trump's cover up of the Epstein files and then the crappy economy. And he went there looking for Donald Trump and with a shotgun. And so this is what is said. The armed man shot and killed by Secret Service agents outside of Mar-a-Lago had reportedly become increasingly obsessed with the Epstein files and was also a vocal Trump supporter. Austin Tucker Martin sent a text to a coworker on February 15th, 2026, obtained by TMZ that read, quote, "I don't know if you read up on the Epstein files, but evil is real and unmistakable." He added, the best people like you and I can do is use what little influence we have. Tell other people about what you hear about the Epstein files and what the government is doing about it. Raise awareness. Sources who worked with him at Pine Needles Lodge and Golf Club in North Carolina told TMZ he became fixated on the Epstein matter after the latest release of the Epstein files and was deeply disturbed by what he believed was a government cover up, often talking about powerful people, quote, getting away with it. Wash.
Oh, it's like QAnon. Oh, but the opposite side of QAnon in this fact that Republicans for about a decade have deliberately nurtured what we assumed was a conspiracy theory that emerged from 4chan. And from the Epstein files, we know that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to meet the creator and the founder of 4chan, had actually a meeting with him. And from 4chan, which is on the internet, on the fringes of the internet, you got QAnon and you got all these other conspiracy theories, the replacement theory and Pizzagate. But what QAnon said was that it was a cabal of liberals and leftists
Hmm.
and Trump critics who were devil worshipping pedophiles. And it was a conspiracy and it was run by the Jews. And the Jews were using people of color to replace white people. And QAnon, people always forget, radicalized Trumpers to violence. Ashley Babbitt
Hmm.
was a QAnon nut. Vance Bolter, a name no one talks of because, oh,
Hmm.
yes, another Trump supporter who had a list of 60 to 70 liberals. He killed Melissa Hortman, her family, her dog, right? Massive Trump supporter who was pushed to the edge over QAnon. Now you're seeing it was probably a psyops campaign. I mean, I don't have proof of this. That's why I always want to put what's fact is fact and speculation. But my speculation, based on what we know, Danielle,
Hmm.
is they it's all projection all the time with
Hmm.
Trumpers, right? Everything is projection. They every every type of diss towards liberals is almost like a confession. Think about it. They were the ones, part and parcel of a global conspiracy. Now they're the ones who are part of the cover up. Who was mentioned more times than any other person? Who was mentioned more times than Jeffrey Epstein in the Epstein files? Donald
Donald
Trump.
Trump.
And voila, are you surprised? By my count, this is the third white Trumper male who
Hmm.
tried to kill him. The third. There is one man who, everyone talks about the where the glass chipped his ear.
Hmm.
We don't talk about that man ever again. White Trumper, who was a Republican, gun
Yep.
nut, but radicalized. Super Trumper, then radicalized. Okay. The second one, another white man that we don't talk about, who tried to stab himself in the neck when he was convicted in Florida. I think it was last year. He tried to unsuccessfully kill Donald Trump. And now this person, not a Haitian, not a Somalian, not a
Not a
black
trans
person,
person.
not a trans person, not Antifa, not a leftist, not a Muslim. Yet another Trumper.
I mean, I just think that it's extraordinary, right? Because again, they're the ones that have created the conspiracy theories that were essentially, now that we know, based on truth, that was about this bipartisan Epstein syndicate of powerful men
Yeah.
that were enabled throughout all of their industries: banking, politics, the royals,
Academia.
etc., academia, tech, to do the most depraved things that we could possibly ever think of. And then when you see this, and Donald Trump, he was the person who put Epstein in our lexicon. He was the one, every time he had a microphone in front of him, he's talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to get to the bottom of this. My government is going to investigate. We're going to get rid of the deep state, over and
Yep,
over again. He radicalized his own people because he thought that he could control the weapon that he radicalized.
that's right.
And now we continue to see, because on top of their giant Epstein cover up, which is now, which we'll talk about shortly, which is now so apparent in comparison to what is happening in Europe and their response to who is inside of the Epstein files that happen to be nationals of their countries versus the absolute nothing that is happening in this country. Their base that believed, for whatever reason, in the lies that Donald Trump has been spewing for the last 10 years, that he was going to clear out the deep state, he was going to clear out the swamp, and now they realize they've been duped. And what happens to radicalized, inherently violent people that are armed to the T? What happens? Right? They're going to take out that aggression on everyone and anything around them. And I think that it is, again, a travesty of legacy media not to connect these dots and
Nope.
understand that the fact that Donald Trump has said over the weekend too, Waj, well, at the end of last week, what did he say? I can destroy the country if I
Yep.
want to. And that's not front page news. We're not
No,
having that
AOC didn't know where
conversation.
Venezuela was. She thought it was below the equator. Danielle, it's above the equator, and that doesn't make her presidential, even though she's not running for president. Article after article after article after article. She's not even running for. Look how threatened they are by Mamdani. I always want people just, people say, oh, why? Well, give me the proof. Mamdani. Look how threatened they were by Mamdani, and look at the pass that they keep giving Donald Trump, Danielle. Look at the pass they keep giving Donald Trump. AOC, who's not president, not running for president, was actually pretty brilliant in her main purpose of going and talking about rising income inequality and tying it to authoritarianism. She didn't know that Venezuela was above the equator. Guess what, folks? I probably didn't know either. If they would have asked me, I'm like, it's below the equator. That's what there was more ink spilled on by corporate media than the fact that Donald Trump, literally like a baby, threw a tantrum and
Mhm.
responded to the Supreme Court by literally then doing exactly what they told him he couldn't do, and raising the tariff to 15%, saying, I could do whatever I want, I could destroy the country if I want. What are you going to do about it? This is who we are. It's no country for non-white men, right? Like a white man like Donald Trump can destroy the country, but as long as he's promoting white men, good business for white men, and white Christian nationalism, it's okay. Let's just be blunt, folks. The Supreme Court created this monster. The
Mhm.
Supreme Court gave
Mhm.
him, even though they said president, it wasn't about Biden. It was about him. Absolute immunity. The Supreme Court had time and time again opportunities to rein him in. The only time they reined him in is when he went after their money. They said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You you can't fire this black woman, Lisa Cook, from the Federal Reserve. Don't mess around with the
Mhm.
Federal Reserve." And then they said, "Whoa,
You
whoa,
can't go
whoa,
after the chairman.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Easy there. 6-3 decision. Easy. You've exceeded your authority that we gave you, almost unlimited, expansive authority. You can't unilaterally impose these tariffs. This has been bad for business. Come on now." And Danielle, if you think about it, they're kind of helping him. These tariffs are terrible. This trade war is stupid. Here, let us help you. You can't do it. Okay. He's like, I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. And then, like you said, you have these armed, friggin' radicalized white dudes. I want to bring it back before QAnon, before Ashley Babbitt. What was there 10 years ago, folks? Pizzagate. They
Yep.
saw
Yep.
saw an opportunity to move these conspiracy theories to hurt Hillary Clinton. A white man right here. I've been to that pizza parlor before. It's that Comet. I think it's called Comet Ping Pong Pizza, right? Where there's
Mhm.
also ping pong tables. There's no basement with children. Just a pizza parlor next to Politics and Pros. A white man drives a couple of states, comes out with a gun, goes, "Where are the children?" They're like, "Sir, this is a Wendy's. Sir, this is a pizza parlor." They're like, "No, no, no. Hillary Clinton and Democrats have children. I'm here to save the
Yep.
children." And they're like, "Oh," instead of reining it in, they're like, "Ah, this will work." And now, Danielle, Frankenstein's monster, just
I
saying.
mean, it's just, again, it is. so ridiculously irresponsible to not connect these dots, to not understand that the level of lies, the level of gaslighting, on top of the fact that Donald Trump is has not destroying the economy is destroyed, on top of our relations, reorganizing the order of who our allies are and who they aren't. And people are seeing that. They're not dumb, right? Like we continue to say that Americans have the memory of a gnat, but at the end of the day, you can tell, is my life better off this year than it was last year? Am I doing better, right? Since Donald Trump came in? No, I'm not. And we continue to say that if he had done the bare fucking minimum,
That's
which
right.
is hold on to Biden's economy, if he had done the bare minimum, guess what we wouldn't be talking about? We wouldn't be talking about ICE. We wouldn't be talking about his poll numbers in the sewer, because if people would be, look at my 401k. Look, I have a job. Everything else you can do. But it's like they can't manage. And I again, they can't manage to even do the bare minimum that would actually give them the support, because we all know that if the economy was good,
Yeah.
no one would care about anything else. They wouldn't be talking about the 5-year-olds that are in detention centers. They wouldn't be talking about the multiple people that have been murdered by ICE. They wouldn't be talking, right, about the fact that we're going to head into World War III as a distraction from all of the other things that are going on. They wouldn't continue to talk about Epstein. The economy's good, people would be going about their business. But they managed to fuck that over as well, right? And then they continue to lie about it. And on top of that, because I want to go into Epstein, Kash friggin' Patel, man. These people, like, again, they don't even care enough, Waj, to lie, like, to even pretend to do their jobs. They don't care enough to do that. So Kash Patel was recorded, folks, on Team USA's the hockey team, celebrating with them in the locker room when MS Now, formerly MSNBC, broke the story. Kash Patel's assistant had the audacity to say that this is the fourth public official event since Director Patel's arrival in Italy. And for those wondering, I have yet to receive any follow-ups from CBS or MSN Now who purposefully misled people to think Kash Patel was flying to Italy to hang out at the Olympics.
Private jet, taxpayer dollars, $75,000, folks.
I just want to, again, go back to the photo. There was a video, him, champagne, locker room, all on our dime. MS Now reports it. They blatantly lie and say there's no evidence of that. He's on official duty. Yeah, champagne showers, not an official duty. Definitely not.
Um, every Desi kid growing up knew a Kash Patel.
Mm.
Every Desi kid knew growing up has a Kash Patel, unfortunately, in their circle. Let me tell you what a Kash Patel is. A Kash Patel is that Desi kid growing up who is deeply insecure, deeply nerdy. That insecurity and that nerdiness turns into self-loathing. Oh, that Kash Patel so desperately wants Chet to like him and invite him to the parties. That Kash Patel so desperately, and I mean desperately, wants Karen to look at his direction. Karen never looks at his direction. This dork gets dissed by white women again and again and again. All he wants to do is to be accepted. If he could burn his brown skin off and become white,
Mm.
he would.
Mm.
All right. These losers, I know a lot of Kash Patels. Just trust me. I did this tweet yesterday, and a whole bunch of South Asians are like, yep, these Kash Patels, right? They go to college and they find like the one white girl. It doesn't even matter if she's like a really good looking white girl, but they hate themselves so much that the whiteness is a currency that they would trade for, right? They could be like a 9 Indian girl, like out of 10, and like a 5 white girl. And they're like,
And
oh, the
they'll
5.
run for
Oh,
the 5.
yeah. Oh, the 5. And then you see these broken ass men who get in positions of power, and all of them, Daniel, going back to your point, why is it so self-destructive? Because they're broken. They're self-destructive men. There's always a hole in them, right? Something to fill. So here's Kash Patel, folks. If you think I'm lying, think I'm being too mean, Kash Patel comes out, hey, Charlie Kirk, hey, brother, I'll see you in Valhalla. And then we found out from the FBI, because the FBI sees this guy as a total loser, a cosplaying freak, a man who has zero FBI experience. He stayed in the plane and would not leave the plane for the photo op
Until he
until
got a
like
nice
the
jacket.
yeah, I like the big boys. I want a jacket too. So the FBI people, this is only reported by the FBI to mock him. This is the only. I'm telling you all, this is the only the reason why we have this information, because the FBI leaked this to mock him. They said that the only jacket that could fit Kash Patel was a medium female jacket. Now, someone says, "Watch, here's a medium female FBI jacket. It fits you." I don't care. I'd wear it. No one would matter. But because these men are so insecure and they've created a type of cosplay crusader mindset. If you think about it, the entire Trump administration,
Yep,
it's like a big cosplay convention. It's
all of
like
it.
Comic Con.
Yeah.
They're all cosplaying all the time. So this guy, he gets that medium female's FBI jacket and he comes out. Remember, he goes, "Hey guys, hey Valhalla, I'll see you in Valhalla, Charlie Kirk." And people forget that the FBI. I always want to keep this data point. If Tyler Robinson, the
Uh-huh.
alleged shooter, if he was not convinced by his family member to turn himself in, folks, the day before, the FBI was flying blind. They were flying blind. They had nothing. Kash Patel had already removed the, wait for it, South Asian, the Pakistani American Muslim female who was the head of the FBI at that time for 20 plus years, who was extremely respected. They had removed her due to the anti DI policies. So
Mhm.
Kash Patel, who has no experience, who is cosplaying like Christy Nome and everyone else, came in there with his cosplay jacket, like, "Hey, hey, Charlie Kirk, I'll see you in Valhalla." And even him saying, "I'll see you in Valhalla," mother effer, you're never getting into Valhalla. You're
No,
brown.
because it's
You
for
and
white
yeah,
men.
you and Harmeet Dillon and Nikki Haley will be there, like, "Hi, is anyone there?" And there's like a rager happening, and then the guy will open up. He'll go like, "No one's here." He goes, "I see people there." No, you don't. I think Valhalla's down. I think it's at 7-Eleven. Cash. Sorry for my rant.
I mean, I just it's a it is so deep because when you look at the people of color, right, that are in Trump world, they are all self-loathing, right? When you look, you can talk about the South Asians, and I'll talk about Scott, right, and his faceless run for president, right? Like, oh, don't look at me, I'm not really black. Like, here I am to be your lawn jockey. Like, in all honesty, that's
Ooh.
what yeah, I said it. Because that's what these people, that's what they are, and they are just so happy to be accepted. Like, remember when Donald Trump was just like, "Oh, and you didn't even vote for Nikki Haley. She's from your state." And he goes, "I don't hate her, but I love you." And I mean,
I don't hate her, but I love you,
it
and
was so
I
nauseating.
love my real heterosexual wife, female
Who
person who's next to
have we
me.
seen her since? Have we seen her since he lost the part? Have we seen her since? All I have to say is yes, every group, every marginalized group has those people, right? And it's why you look and you see how did 10%, how did Latinos think that they were going to vote for Donald Trump and that they weren't going to end up in ICE detention? How
That's
do
right.
how do people think that they were going to wear the Blacks for Trump t-shirt and that, like, it wasn't going to come back to bite you? And now all of a sudden these people are saying, "Oh, it wasn't supposed to be us. We all came here the right way. It wasn't supposed to be us." And it was like, it was always going to be you.
Always.
It was always going to be you.
Did you hear the story real quick? Speaking of that point, it's kind of gone viral where a man in Florida, a white man in Florida who's like a massive Trumper, his partner is a Cuban American female, but she wasn't a citizen. And ICE came and took her, and now he's just like they're sobbing. "Oh, I didn't know it'd be her. I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I didn't think they'd go after her." And people are like, "Wow, it's terrible." But eh.
How am I supposed to feel bad for you? I actually don't, right? Because you voted for this. You went there and you voted for this, you celebrated this because you thought that there was going to be some distinction in your accent, some distinction in your melanin, right? No, they come for one, they come for all. And that's what these people get. Moving on, right? Because I think that this is, again, Nothing that's going to be investigated on our end. So we'll see what happens elsewhere. But the
Well,
Eastern
it won't
District,
be investigated because Kash Patel is taking champagne showers with, Team, USA in Italy, that's why.
yeah. So the Eastern District of New York apparently was investing folks because look, we use the word alleged so that we don't get sued. But the fact is that we have been saying for how long now that when we talk about the death of Jeffrey Epstein, I always put it in quotations. We say, allegedly committed suicide. And it just so happens that everyone inside of that syndicate, if they are not around anymore, have all allegedly committed suicide. So here was some breaking news that the Eastern District of New York apparently was investigating Jeffrey Epstein's death as what? Murder. This is an email sent by an assistant U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of New York referencing an investigation into the murder of Jeffrey Epstein. The email was sent about a year after after Epstein's officially ruled suicide. Why does it say murder instead of suicide? So here it
Mm,
is blown up. Hi, redacted. I'm an AUSA in EDNY, and I'm working on an investigation into the death of an inmate at the Brooklyn MDC. The OCME told me that it signed a confidentiality agreement in connection with the investigation into the what? Murder
murder.
of Jeffrey Epstein. We were hoping to extend a similar agreement, and I wanted to see if you could share the agreement or a boilerplate version of it. I'm happy to speak over the phone if that's easier. Eh,
That's a US attorney.
mhm,
That's a US attorney, uh, and then well, there's a couple things happening. That's not just some, journalist. That's not some crank. That's a US attorney. That seems like an official email.
mhm,
He mentioned the word investigation.
mhm,
He seemed to have a source,
mhm,
and he said murder because if it was just a suicide, well, oh, we went did the forensics. It's a suicide. It's done. Murder, folks. Uh, Danielle, you and I are not conspiracy theorists. We always try our best to separate fact from speculation. And especially with the Epstein files, which now with more that we know, you don't even need to be conspiratorial because it's kind of all out there. What we realized with the Epstein cabal is they didn't really hide anything, folks.
no,
It was all in the open. And that spidey sense that we always got that things were off, that spidey sense was validated. Now, how deep goes the well? We will find out, and most likely in the well, we will find the bodies of children, probably in Zorro Ranch,
mm,
because
mm,
now the FBI and Pam Bondi aren't doing their investigation, but New Mexico, just a couple of days ago, last week,
yep,
New Mexico announced they're launching the first ever investigation into Zorro Ranch. Zorro Ranch is one of the many properties where Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal of men allegedly trafficked,
mhm,
and raped, and most likely killed girls. So, in
mhm,
addition to doing an investigation, what they're searching for right now, folks, what they're searching for is bodies. They're searching for potential burial plots, right? And so, when it comes to Epstein, um, Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, has long said after reviewing the body of Epstein that the three broken bones, right?
mhm,
He did an independent autopsy, and they're like, yeah, this is not really congruent with people who kill themselves. Then Danielle, this is fact. So that's fact
mhm,
number one.
mhm.
Number two, fact number two, CBS, like 2 months ago, some reporters still doing it. Check this out, folks. It was pretty big. We talked about Danielle Moodie. I think this should be bigger news. We found out that the forensic audit of the jail cell where Epstein was found dead
Mhm.
via suicide, every type of rudimentary, elementary rookie mistake
Mistake.
that
Yep.
could have been made in that forensic, if you will, autopsy was made. Stuff was misplaced, stuff was mishandled, things weren't labeled correctly. The two guards were not interviewed for 2 years.
Mhm.
And then you go,
Camera was turned off, guard happens to go on break, somebody fell asleep, and adjust because again, we're not tin hatters, but Waj, can you remind people for fact who visited Epstein 4 days before his death?
a Bilbao.
And Bill Barr was in his current position as?
Attorney General.
Okay. So the
And
attorney
Bill
gen
Barr's father, can you tell him
uh-huh.
about Bill Barr's father?
So Bill Barr's father, for whatever reason,
I have an
hires
idea. I have a speculation about this after you say it.
hires Jeffrey Epstein as a professor, right? At a
Dalton.
private school, right? Dalton, that he was working at. Uh for the man has no degree as an educator. The qualification is what? That he then has access to high school girls. So there is a connection there because Jeffrey Epstein was connected to everyone. There are webs that go all the way around. But I mean, this is Scooby Doo shit. This is the things that we say. You visit him 4 days later, cameras go blank, people are off duty, and this man that had been on a suicide watch manages to have the materials in his cell to kill himself.
With 3 broken bones in his neck that, according to one independent autopsy done by his brother, were far too violent and unusual for, a normal suicide via rope hanging. And then every type of mistake that could have been made when it comes to the autopsy, the forensic autopsy. And this is my speculation
Mhm, mhm.
about Bill Barr. Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, right, was the head of this really fancy school,
Yep.
the headmaster, Dalton. However, did you know he was a former officer in the Office of Strategic Services, the predecessor to the CIA during World War II? And many folks said that
Oh god.
that Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, still had ties with the CIA. Right? This is not speculation. This is fact. So now let me get to speculation.
Uh-huh.
Let's think about this just for a second, because I want people to connect the dots. I've said this, because so, everyone's talking about the Epstein files. Over the weekend, like average Jose's and Joes are like, "Watch, I got conspiracies," and then I try to sift away the conspiracies from the facts because like we literally talk about it every day. People are willing to believe everything, by the way, so I won't get there. But if you think about it, Danielle,
Mhm.
Jeffrey Epstein, like you mentioned, okay, a rather unremarkable fellow
Yep.
based on his CV, gets a teaching job at one of the
Mhm.
most prestigious schools in New York because Donald Barr just took a liking to him. He saw something in him, Danielle. It was a spark. While there, multiple cases of incidents of inappropriate behavior with girls. While that's happening, in a chance meeting with the executive at Bear Stearns, this guy at Bear Stearns just took a liking to Jeffrey Epstein. He was just like, my God, this guy's so brilliant. So Epstein, not once in his life, but twice in his life, Daniel, fails up, gets a lottery ticket,
Yep.
goes to Bear Stearns. Other employees in Bear Stearns find out that Jeffrey Epstein lied in his CV, something that would
Mhm.
get them immediately fired, and furthermore, is behaving somewhat unethically. His boss, whose name I'm forgetting at Bear Stearns, says, you're right, guys. Any other person, this would be the end of their career at Bear Stearns, but he's just so brilliant. He's gonna fail up one more time. We're gonna give him another shot. Then, Danielle, he leaves and he's given money by a whole bunch of rich people to find their lost money and assets, right? So now he's connected to all these rich people. Then he hooks up with Ghislaine Maxwell right after her father, Robert Maxwell, mysteriously dies. A expert swimmer who's found drowning by the side of his boat, accidentally drowned, buried in the Mount of Olives, has extensive ties to Mossad in Israel. Then he gets flush with Ghislaine's money. Ghislaine opens up the world to him. One of the people that, they open up to is Leslie Wexner, who just decides, like anyone does, to give him hundreds of millions of dollars and a townhouse. So if you think about it, he is just so charming, as you can tell
Mm.
from the emails, so
So
brilliant,
charming, as you
as
can
you can
tell
tell
from
from
the
the
emails.
emails.
Yeah.
He
Uh-huh.
just fails up again and again. And all
Uh-huh.
these people who are wealthy and powerful, who are professional spotters of BS, who would give no one else the time of day, just say, this guy, you know what? I have to help him. He's that brilliant. So, Danielle, my take on this,
Mhm.
I think he was an asset, either a deliberate asset or cultivated as an asset way back in Dalton. I think they saw him as like a smooth talking pedophile that
Mm.
they can use to capture other people. And then I think I'm thinking it was probably CIA and Mossad, then unleashed them to the world. And then speaking on Mossad, have you guys noticed nobody in America talks about like Israel and Epstein? It's all about
Oh,
Russia.
no, it's all
All my
about
friends were
Russia.
joking. They're like, Epstein was really close to the former prime minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and Ehud Barak stayed in his home. And we have audio clips. This proves Russia. Anyway, what do you think, Danielle,
I
about
just look,
my
I
little take?
think that the entire layout, I know it's your speculation, but it is obvious that this man was cultivated, groomed as an asset for multiple countries. It is obvious that people knew and helped cover up the fact that he was a pedophile. They just saw that as like it's like being a smoker to them.
Yeah,
It's just a trait that we can kind of overlook because he's just so important that we'll let that slide. The abuse and rape and torture and possible murder of young girls. Also, that we can get intel on these different people. And again, why were people giving a man that does not have the acumen as some financial genius access to your hundreds of millions of dollars? Why is this the person that you're handing over your worth to? And it is because I'm pretty sure he had blackmail on all of them. Why? Because he had cameras in his fucking home that was installed by Israel, confirmed in all of these emails, right?
Dropside did a really good piece a couple of days ago.
So you look at all of this and like, yes, when you kind of pull back, does it seem tin hattish? But all of the emails are proving exactly what we all thought. And so the question then becomes when you go back to, and I want to pull it up again if I can find it. When you go back to this and it says connection with the investigation into the murder of Jeffrey Epstein. The question is which government wanted him gone, right? Because now you know that his hands were literally everywhere. Who did he become an increased liability for? That's really the question. Or, and this is now I'll put on a tin hat to the side because what people are all talking about on social media is we don't actually believe that he's dead, which is what people keep saying over and over again, right? Like, isn't it all very convenient?
It's
Because
it's
again, you're trying to pin this entire syndicate on one person who conveniently is dead. So therefore the FBI and Trump, they're like, we don't need to investigate. Ghislaine's in prison. Epstein is dead. Poof. All of this 30-year multi-billion dollar syndicate just has now gone away so everybody can just go back to watching soap operas and eating bonbons because this is now all much to do about nothing.
Well, Donald Trump said it's time to move on. It's a cover up, as we've said for the past year. We know that Kash Patel lied. There's no evidence. There's no evidence of sex trafficking whatsoever in the files. Of course, there is. So it's a cover up by Kash Patel. It's a cover up by Pam Bondi. It's a cover up by Donald Trump. And while other countries, folks, are launching criminal investigations, as heads are rolling in the UK, heads might roll in France. As journalists now are finally doing their job, some corporate mainstream journalists are finally on top of it, doing the fantastic work of a journalist like Julie Brown, an independent journalist.
Mhm.
Our country, this administration, eh, time to move on. And sadly, when you don't do an investigation, when you're not transparent, conspiracy theories flourish.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, Danielle, over the weekend, it's Ramadan, so you have iftars. Iftars are when you break the fast at night. Someone usually invites you, so you meet a whole bunch of people, community. I'm telling y'all, I'm sure you have this in your communities also, Danielle. Everyone's talking about it.
Yep.
And really smart, educated people are saying some of the most outlandish things to me, but they're like, I don't believe anything. Like, I think he might be
Because
alive.
but
Is he
that's
alive,
what
Raj?
But that's what happens when the well has become so poisoned.
Yeah, there you
But
go.
when we're pulling back the layers of all of this, we're like, there's no way that this syndicate was operating in broad daylight and no one did anything. There's no way that this man had gynecologists, dentists on his bankroll, right? There's no way that this kind of operation was going on for 30 years and you have so many people that tried to come forward and they were overlooked. And then you have all of this around potential cannibalism and killing babies. And I mean, all of these things, it sounds insane, but all of it has been proven to be true in the emails that have been released, which is why Pam Bondi's like, we ain't releasing anymore. And this is what I say, Waj. If what we have seen, right, is as depraved and awful as it is, can you imagine what they don't want us to see? Because that's what is terrifying to me, is that what they have allowed us to see is despicable. So what is it that they're actually holding back, which I think is potentially, again, allegedly, the videos and photographs that implicate Donald Trump without beyond a reasonable doubt. I want to play this clip, which was Mark Epstein. This is Jeffrey Epstein's brother with Don Lemon. And then, of course, it won't play. 1 second, folks. Always a technical glitch.
And also, folks, look at the, there's more investigation now. Wall Street Journal just reported that France, Paris specifically, is investigating into Epstein, both money laundering and criminal investigation when it comes to sex trafficking. Also,
they
more
covering
and more
up for? Right? Where's the cover up?
That's what I'm asking you. Who are they covering up for?
Kash Patel killed him, and I don't think Bill Barr killed him. So who are they protecting? That's the question.
Who is it?
Well, I don't speculate, but you could speculate. Who do you think? Out of all the people that might want to see Jeffrey dead, supposedly there's a long list. How many would have the ability to have this orchestrated and have the DOJ cover it up? That's a much smaller list. That's a much smaller list.
Do you think Donald Trump had something to do with it?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
It's speculation, folks. We don't know, but we know that Donald Trump was Jeffrey Epstein's closest friend. We know that they partied together. We know that there's allegations. And also within that Epstein files, folks, the FBI interviewed a credible witness 4 times who alleged that Epstein gave Donald Trump a 13-year-old girl, and that 13-year-old girl alleges that he exposed his penis to her, and then he forced her to do certain things, and then she bit him, and then he punched her in the head. And then that girl, in 2021, the Epstein estate settled with her. Now, just because the Epstein estate settled with her, that's not proof of guilt. But 4 interviews, FBI seems that she's a credible witness. Epstein estate settled with her. Her case was part of a 21-page slideshow that was presented by the DOJ last summer. Right. We know that Donald Trump has a history of about 24 women accusing him of sexual assault. He was held liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. We know from the MO of these allegations that he has a certain type of behavior that seems consistent in these allegations. Right. We've heard from reporting about, women, girls, employees who saw Epstein and Trump just surrounded by girls at Mar-a-Lago and Epstein places. There's another allegation that women were trafficked through Trump's modeling agencies. Oh, who started modeling agencies at the same time? Trump and Epstein.
And the pageants.
And Miss USA. There are, I think, at least 4 girls who said that Donald Trump, as a grown man in his 50s, went in their dressing room while they were changing and thought it was creepy. So I'm just saying the person who was in charge, the president of the United States, when Epstein was arrested, Donald Trump, 2019. Right. And his attorney general, Bill Barr, visits Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein then dies. Interestingly enough, his brother says allegedly he was not suicidal. And now we've seen, folks, if I may, Ghislaine Maxwell, because I think she kind of falls under the radar. Danielle, can you please explain to me why Ghislaine Maxwell was given a special transfer given to nobody else with her status and is getting special treatment in Texas? Can somebody please explain that to me?
I mean, I'm assuming because Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General, sat down with her My speculation is that she was like, "Get me out of here. Otherwise, I'm going to talk." And he said, "Can't do that. But what I can do for you is move you to a minimum security place, give you a puppy and some good food that can be flown in for you until we can figure this whole thing out. And if they haul you before Congress, just make sure to take the fifth." Okay. Okay. Everyone on the same page? Got it. And then again, who was the person that sat down on the Sunday shows 2 weeks ago and said, it's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein? Maybe unseemly, but not a crime.
God
And
bless.
who reminded us that it actually is a crime? Representative Ted Louie, who is also an attorney and an actual one, not like these cosplaying fools. And so, again, folks, last week, we saw chips in the dam with the arrest and of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We saw an investigation into Mandelson, the former U.S. ambassador from the UK. We are now, and just look at this, as the DOJ demurs, very good choice of words, Washington Post, from new inquiries linked to the Epstein files, the approach by European authorities stands in stark contrast. Governments across the pond are promising to hold the wealthy, powerful, and politically connected to account. And I think that through those investigations, we are going to learn a lot more about who knew
Wow.
what, where, and when.
Breaking news.
Yes.
Pete Mandelson just arrested amid probe into Epstein 4 minutes ago. UK's ex-ambassador to the US arrested.
Ooh,
Wow, that was like 20 minutes ago, excuse me.
20
Whoa.
minutes ago, Mandelson arrested.
Folks, you think we cray. We ain't cray. Wow, give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Mandelson, the former UK ambassador to the US, was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Quote, officers have arrested a 70-year-old man who was arrested at an address in Camden and has been taken to London police station for the interview. The police have confirmed that the arrest followed search warrants at 2 addresses in the Wiltshire and Camden areas. The statement did not name the former ambassador. Police opened a criminal investigation into Mandelson earlier this month after allegations stemmed from the U.S. Department of Justice's. Oh, it's so infuriating. Other countries are following up from our file release. Okay. From the Department of Justice's January 30th with the release related to Epstein. Once a prominent figure in the UK's ruling Labour Party, Mandelson was sacked as ambassador in September, just months after his appointment, following disclosures from a former batch of Epstein files that showed his relationship with financier extended beyond what he had previously disclosed. A series of emails show that Mandelson had maintained communication with Epstein after the arrest and conviction in 2008. And furthermore, folks, in addition to lying about the extent of his relationship, what they were investigating in the criminal investigation was alleged sensitive information that Mandelson just happened to give Epstein.
Because again, that is also the reason why Andrew was picked up. So here is the thing, and this is why, and it is not to minimize at all the pedophilia, the rape, the torture, the murder. Why are these men, Mandelson and Andrew, being picked up now? It actually isn't with regard to the depravity of their behavior. It is because they were also sharing sensitive information about their governments with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
And the reason is why? Why is that?
Why?
Why? Because he had shit on them. And it was like, give me what it is that I need.
There you go.
So what is this country doing in the meantime while we are getting ready to see Wag the Dog in real life, folks, because Donald Trump probably this week, maybe next week.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. He's going to start World War III.
Most likely, that's what the rumors are saying internally, that tomorrow.
So here is the thing. Last year, what did Donald Trump do? He decided to do what? Bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran. Donald Trump gets on national television and says that he has what? totally obliterated their nuclear capabilities, to then find out just a few hours later that, oops, they weren't actually obliterated.
Whoopsie.
They were just slowed down by a few months. So what do we see here? Last year, Trump said Iran's nuclear program was totally obliterated. Now, Witkoff says Iran is a week away from having the material for a nuke. The only way to square that circle is that they are totally full of shit and marching us into another war based on lies. And so let's take a listen to this, and then Waj, I'll turn it over to you, to because this is fascinating to me.
We have red lines here from the U.S. How about over with Iran?
The president asked me that this morning, and I don't want to use the word frustrated. It's almost because he understands he's got plenty of alternatives. But it's curious. He's curious as to why they haven't, I don't want to use the word capitulated, but why they haven't capitulated. Why under this sort of pressure, with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon, so here's what we're prepared to do. And yet it's hard to sort of get them to that place.
Well, there's that.
Steve Witkoff and his family need to be investigated. Steve Witkoff and his family have made billions of dollars off of crypto. Steve Witkoff and his family, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, remember that? They were sent to do these negotiations. For some strange reason, Jared Kushner is there in Ukraine and Russia and with Iran. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner pretty much went to Iran and said, capitulate or else. And Iran's like, go F yourself.
Yep.
Donald Trump blew up the Obama U.S.-Iran deal that actually lowered tensions and brought Iran to the table through diplomacy. After blowing it up, because going back full circle, they make everything worse. Now he wants, and the war hawks and the white Christian nationalists and the Israel first type of psychopaths just want the regime gone by any means necessary. I want you to remember that Benjamin Netanyahu came to the United States. Remember that during that pathetic display where America was lied to. Colin Powell sat there and like shake the vial and said, we have to strike weapons of mass destruction, mobile laboratories. Guess who was there making the case to expand the war from Afghanistan and Iraq to Iran? Benjamin Netanyahu. So this has been their dream, their fever dream for decades, right? What's going to happen is they are going to engage in a war, and America is going to be effed, because this is going to spill over, folks. Before we get to this amazing interview done by a racist, because even this is America, even a broken clock is right twice a day now. A white trash clock like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's terrible. You're like, all right, she's horrid, but makes a good point on Epstein. This is where we are, folks. I just want to let people know, for those who don't follow, about 85% of Muslim communities are Sunni. I'm Sunni. About 15% are Shia. Iran is Shia, majority Shia, run by the jurists, okay, the Vilayat-e-Faqih. When it comes to the authoritarian regime, yes. But in addition to the politics, there is if you will, a massive religious component where the guardianship of the jurists, the Vilayat-e-Faqih, for many Shias around the world, they see to them as like a type of religious, like the imam, right? The religious center, the religious leaders. So think about this, folks. It's not just removing an oppressive political regime.
Right.
What you're doing is toppling people's religious leaders. What does that do? There are Shias all around the world. So now you inflame, if you will, rightfully so, right? A bunch of Shias like, whoa, 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 we might not like them, but it's kind of a weird situation where, you know, we kind of follow them for religious guidance. You remove them. There are Shias in Lebanon, right? There are Shias in Pakistan. There are Shias all around the world. And you think you can just contain this, Danielle, if you go and violently attack. Let's be honest, they want to do a regime change. Let's just be honest. They're openly saying it. Like
they said it. Yeah.
Yeah. Lindsey Graham is sitting there with the biggest boner on earth. And you think while this is happening and Israel is committing a genocide, and you have the Houthis in Yemen, and you have Hezbollah in Lebanon, and you have this very perilous situation in Syria post-Assad where they're trying to rebuild, and you have Libya, and then all the Shias around the world, and then you think about also some of these extremist groups who could get activated, like, even though they're weaker, they still exist. You're thinking everything will be safer, everything will be better. Just wanted to give you all just a heads up of, God forbid, if they strike and if they violently remove the Iranian theocracy, and then they come in and put in their puppet government, what do you all think will happen? Oh yeah, this happened again in the 70s with the Shah. Yeah, this already happened with the Shah, the U.S. puppet who came in and was more brutal, insanely brutal. Mossadegh was a democratically elected leader who wanted to nationalize the country's oil. The CIA and UK were like, no, we can't have you do that. Got rid of him, put in the Shah, who was immensely brutal, that led to the Islamic Revolution in the first place. Sorry, I just want to give a little lesson there.
No, I mean, look, these are the things that are important, because without the truth, we only take in what the government is telling us about the reasons that they are going into these places and the reasons that they are doing these things. And it always comes back to, if it does not benefit the United States, if it does not benefit our oil, if it does not benefit our extraction, then we do regime change. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has nothing to do with liberation. It has everything to do with control. And look, so again,
Daniel, have you seen this interview? Wow, he got him.
Broken white supremacist clock, right twice a day. And this is Tucker Carlson with Mike Huckabee. And folks, take a listen, because Mike Huckabee can't help but say the quiet part out loud.
Like, how much does it matter what Americans think?
Well, it matters every bit what Americans think. That's why Americans vote. It's why Americans have the opportunity to have free speech. We want them to have that.
Okay, so what percentage of Americans support a war with Iran?
I don't know. Do you know?
I do. I think it's around, I saw the numbers yesterday. I think it was like 21%.
Okay.
Is that enough to have a war with Iran?
We don't live in a world where you have a poll taken to find out whether our policy should be a particular direction. Because
I thought you just said that
that's direct democracy. No, we care deeply about it. But on the other hand, do we make the decisions of foreign policy and even domestic policy based on
we
what
care
the
deeply
latest
about
poll
it? In
number
what
is?
sense? If we're ignoring it, then in what sense do we, quote, care deeply about it?
Well, I think we care deeply when we see there's a threat.
No, but about Americans' opinions. So you've got 350 million Americans. Yeah. They voted in this last election on the basis, in part, of the promise no more wars. Okay, mm-hmm. So now we're about to have a war. Looks like 80% of people are against it. In that range, let's say 70%, but nowhere near majority support for this war. And it's not direct democracy, but it is a form of democracy. It's representative democracy.
The ultimate form of democracy in our system, in a republic, because we're not a true democracy, we're a republic.
Exactly, right? It's a mediated democracy.
It'll be an opportunity for Americans to vote if they think that we've made the wrong policy decisions. I personally think the president is making the right policy decisions.
But I guess, but you just said it matters deeply what Americans think, and if the overwhelming majority are against it, in what sense does it matter? Because what I hear is it matters what they think, but it really doesn't matter what they think because...
No, you take it in, you certainly ingest that.
And then what do you do with it once you ingest it?
Then you make sure that you have... No,
you just...
Like, what do you do after you take in and ingest it? You just shit it out because you don't give a shit what the American people actually think. Because the whole premise of polling is to get a sense of whether or not the policies that you are putting forth that affect the American people actually are resonating with the American people. And what Tucker Carlson, who I hate when he makes sense, because then I feel insane, is that if 80% of Americans are against a war in Iran, and you're telling me that it matters what Americans think, and I'm telling you they think that this is a mistake, and you're saying, well, I don't think that it is. And so your desire for war, because it is a money-making engine, is much more important than the majority of Americans.
And, you know, when the world's worst person makes a good point, that entire interview should be seen because, number one, Mike Huckabee can't help it. Mike Huckabee is a white Christian nationalist through and through. That's his end game. Mike Huckabee, as a white Christian nationalist, reveals his endgame without any subtlety in a government position as the U.S. ambassador to Israel. We're going to talk about it, but what Mike Huckabee said is essentially, oh, yeah, they should get everything. And
Look, because again, this is incredibly important, folks. And Mike Huckabee basically said that he believes that Israel should take over the entire Middle East. He said that it would be fine for Israel to take over the Middle East. And then 14 countries issued
no, well, plus the OIC,
plus the
the OIC.
issued a statement in part saying, and I'll just read the bottom and then throw it back to you, Waj. They affirm their country's categorically rejection of such dangerous and inflammatory remarks, which constitute a flagrant violation of the principles of international law and the Charter of the United Nations, and pose a grave threat to the security and stability of the region. The ministries stress that these statements directly contradict the vision put forward by Donald Trump, as well as the comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict, which are based on containing escalation and creating a political horizon for a comprehensive settlement that ensures that Palestinian people have their own independent state. And so the audacity of Mike Huckabee to say that he believes this homicidal, genocidal, murderous fucking country of Israel should be in charge of the Middle East is insane.
You know what? That is the mindset of white Christian nationalists. The largest Zionist group in America does not belong to any Jewish American organization. It's Christians United for Israel, KUFI, in Texas. And Pastor Hagee is the leader of it. And every year they get, like, if you will, a televised or video address by Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu has long realized that his strongest base in America is not liberals or young Jews. It's these white Christian nationalists. One of the three major forces in the Trump administration. It's the white nationalists represented by Stephen Miller, the white fascist oligarchs, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and Russell Vought, the co-author of Project 2025, a white Christian nationalist. The reason why they're so blunt about it, folks, is there's no need to hide it anymore. They're just telling you. Their end game is the following, for those who don't know. They believe Jews must control Jerusalem as a necessary precondition for the second coming of Jesus. Once Jesus comes back, the first group that he kills, Jews and Muslims. But they believe to them it's just a game. So the Jews are a pawn in a game for them to bring about the rapture. And as far as, many of the Israelis and hardcore Zionists, they say, we don't believe this crap. Okay, we'll go ahead with the cynical, ridiculous relationship because it gets us what we want. Full control, river to the sea. And apparently for Mike Huckabee, everything, the entire Middle East. And I want to ask you this, Danielle, because the world's worst person, like you said, made good points. Tucker, with 2 interviews now. Ted Cruz, remember that Ted Cruz interview over Israel? And Mike Huckabee. Mehdi made this point, and I agreed with him. If you just do your job as a journalist and do a few tough questions and follow-ups, the world sees that this is completely untenable. They fall apart because there's no way to reconcile it. So why is it, and then I tweeted this, why is it that Tucker asks these questions, but Democrats don't and corporate media don't? It is a reflection of how corporate media in America and Democrats have failed when Tucker is asking these logical questions about our support for Israel, unconditional support, bombing Iran without any and with follow-ups. And you see Mike Huckabee literally melt down in real time. Why is it that Tucker does it and not our corporate media? Danielle.
Because he's not bought and paid for by the same corporations. He's not also bought and paid for by AIPAC, right? Because that is what we are understanding, that AIPAC is as dangerous a lobby as the NRA, right? When it comes to their unequivocal support of Israel. and it is insane. And I know that we're at time, but I just want to I want to put this up because when we're talking about the potential of World War III, when we're talking about this powder keg that is the Middle East, and why is the Middle East a powder keg? Because of the extraction, the moving around, the regime changes that the United States and European nations have done for their own benefits. It's like you don't really give a fuck about what is happening on the ground with these people because anytime, and this is the same thing, I had this conversation last week with regard to independent nations in Africa, on the continent of Africa, is that anytime there were leaders that would come in and want to promote nationalism, want to create restrictions on who could extract their resources, who could buy homes, who could buy land. Guess what happened to those duly democratically elected African presidents and leaders? They would be murdered, right? They would be murdered because they wanted to keep their resources for themselves and build up their own countries. And that cannot happen because if that happens, then guess who falls? Europe, right? And the United States that has been raping and pillaging, saying that the colonizer is done, and colonialism is done, but it's not. It has just reformulated itself. And so when you come here and you look at these Democrats, right, who are totally on board with going to war with Iran. And what do we know about Jared Moskowitz and Josh Gottheimer is that they take a boatload of fucking money from AIPAC. So again, this always comes back to, they're like, what a shock that two AIPAC darlings are eager to spend billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars and endanger thousands of American service members along with millions of civilians in a regime change war on Iran, a country nearly 4 times the size of Iraq and with twice the population.
And that's from Dylan. Dylan, I think, was formerly of J Street and has become much more radical against many of his colleagues that he used to work with. He's like been trying to sound the alarm. And speaking about folks, and I think we have to mention this before we leave, why we talk about this. Everyone says, oh, Waj, Danielle, there's more important things than Israel, Palestine. Waj and Danielle, oh, you guys always whining and complaining and hurting the Democrats. And what we said for years, if anyone watches the Democracy show, is you can't ignore Israel, Palestine. You can't ignore Gaza. Democrats, you can't ignore this because especially in the past 2.5 years, we have now seen the emergence of what I call the Gaza generation. Young people around the world have become radicalized by genocide they've seen streamed on their phones. Yep. And that genocide cannot take place, and Israel cannot continue its genocide without U.S. support. So in a way, we are complicit. And because we're complicit, we as Americans actually have a responsibility and actually have the means to hold Israel accountable, to not send them aids, right? To punish our politicians who are aiding in this. President Biden was able to evolve and adapt on the economy. When it came to ideology, he's stuck in the 70s. What we found out now, folks, over the past 2 years, is that the Biden administration had no red lines over Gaza. It was green light, and it was Biden, it was Kirby, it was McGurk, it was Sullivan, and it was Blinken. This type of tight nucleus in the administration, where even Cal Penn came out last week and talking to Hassan Minhaj, said like you cannot reach them. People within the Biden administration resigned over this, folks, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what did we say? This will be bad. It isn't just the Arabs and the Muslims and the Palestinians who are pissed off. Democratic voters are pissed off. Help us help you. For the love of God, stop this. What did Kamala Harris do? No daylight, kid. Didn't break away from Biden on this. Then we said the bar is so low. Mm-hmm. Just have a Palestinian speaker on stage at the DNC. What did the Democrats say? Shut up. Mm-hmm. Shut your mouth. Then the YouGov poll came out. YouGov poll said the main reason, not the only reason, why Democrats stayed at home, and listen, folks, 18 million Dem voters stayed at home. Mm-hmm. Had half of those come out, Kamala's president. We thought it would be Gaza. Said we were crazy. Danielle, it was Gaza. Mm-hmm. Then Ken Martin said, the head of the DNC, We're going to release the audit of the 2024 election, how Kamala could have lost. We're going to learn from it. Trump is so bad that the establishment is like, we don't have to stand for anything. We don't have to promise anything. We could just roll over and win because Trump is so bad. Ken Martin said, you know what? That promise I made to release the autopsy, we're not going to do it. Can you tell them what Axios reported yesterday, Danielle?
I mean, let me tell you, when I saw this, I said, oh, goddamn, because it has been what Waj and I have been saying on Democracy-ish for quite some time, that as soon as it was released that the DNC was not going to make it public, the autopsy, we said, you know what? I think it's because of Gaza. And if they release that autopsy, then guess what their centrist, mealy mouth motherfuckers are going to have to do? They're actually going to have to take a side against genocide, right? And so what did Axios report? DNC officials working on secret report found Gaza stance cost Harris votes. And and I just want to
this is a big leak. They can't escape this. They can't escape this.
Briefly. Top Democratic officials who worked on the party's still secret autopsy of the 2024 election concluded that Kamala Harris lost significant support because of the Biden administration's approach to the war in Gaza. Why it matters. The Democratic National Committee's research on what went wrong in 2024 has been under lock and key since party leaders decided last year to hide it from the public, a reflection of how explosively it could resonate within the party and beyond. Progressive and moderate Democrats are particularly divided over Israel, with the left more critical of that nation's actions against Palestinians in Gaza and many questioning the U.S.'s unwavering support. Zoom in. During her brief campaign, Harris sought to strike a balance, showing strong support for Israel while calling for a ceasefire and expressing sympathy for Palestinians under attack in Gaza, as well as the hostages being held by Hamas. Driving the news, DNC aides putting together the report on Harris's loss to Donald Trump had a closed-door conversation with a pro-Palestinian group about the Israel-Gaza conflict. And folks, the fact of the matter is that Democrats, particularly centrist, moderate Democrats, take a ton of money, millions upon millions of dollars from AIPAC. They were led by Joe Biden's very antiquated views of Israel that he had formulated 40 years prior. If you remember, while Kamala Harris is running for office, what is happening on the college campuses? The college campuses are shutting down and they're being occupied by young people that want their schools to divest in funding for Israel. They do not want their tuition money going to genocide. What does a Biden administration do? Say that these kids don't really understand what is going on and, oh, they've been radicalized by TikTok. And again, what we wanted, bare minimum, have a Palestinian group on stage, have people that are on the fence, right? Come on stage and talk about their position. If you want to have a balance, that would have provided a balance. And instead, it was like, if we lose, Democrats are like, we're going to pin it on young people and we're going to pin it on Gaza, as opposed to if we lose, it's because you chose to side with a homicidal and sociopathic and genocidal fucking regime over your own people. And that is what the Harris team did. So for all of the reasons why, following the State of the Union, we have a centrist that is doing the rebuttal. Following all of the reasons why, you have Newsom, who has been gallivanting around town with right-wingers at the beginning of last year, and now all of a sudden realizes that they're not going to love you, is now doing a two-step once again on AIPAC and on Gaza, because guess what? They follow the polling and they follow the reports, but no one wants to call a spade, which is why Waj has said, look, my litmus test, if you can't say abolish ICE, if you can't say that there is a genocide in Gaza, if you can't say you ain't taking no money from AIPAC, these are the things that are not radical anymore. They are the moderate fucking opinion of people with eyes and hearts and ears. Waj, final thoughts to you.
Final thoughts, breaking news. Judge Eileen Cannon, the toady of MAGA, a Trump-appointed federal judge in Florida, slammed special counsel Jack Smith for drafting a report even after she had dismissed the case, and now she has barred the release of Jack Smith's report on Trump mishandling the documents. It's a cover-up. She has, again, barred the release of Jack Smith's report on Trump mishandling the
And
documents.
I say, at this day and age, fucking leak it.
Yeah,
Like,
just
it
leak
doesn't,
leak everything.
there are no laws anymore. There's no rule of law. So just fucking leak it.
Folks, thank you all for watching the 1,900 people or the 2,000 people. This has been Democracy-ish. We'll be back Wednesday, 3 p.m. for afternoon show. This will be up later on Damn Digest and The Left Hook. Please subscribe, folks. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Everything's free. If you have some money, please go to Damn Digest, become a paid subscriber. I still have my 25% off special for 5 more days, $3.75 a month. So that's theleftook.substack.com/special. I'll be back in 15 minutes with Ellie Leonard, and we're going to be talking about Pete Mandelson arrest and Alan Dershowitz and the connections to Epstein. You will want to see that in 15 minutes. So I'll be back, and I got to run real quick. But Danielle, final word to you.
Yeah, final word to me, folks. I am back at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Danielle Moodie Show. I want to thank everyone who has tuned in, all the super stickers and super thanks. We are way over time, so we are headed out. Folks, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and please, oh, please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Go watch Waj in 15 minutes on The Left Hook.